Welcome. We're doing a deep dive today
Uh,
into some really interesting source material.
Yeah, we are.
And we're really zooming in on just 1 week, but a very important one in crypto. May 27th through June 2nd, 2025.
That's right. And our source for this, well, it doesn't just list things that happened. It actually calls this specific 7 days, basically a defining week for
The
crypto.
defining week? Okay.
Yeah. So our mission really is to unpack what happened in those few days and try to figure out what the source means by that. Why was it so pivotal?
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
The source really paints a picture of several big things happening at once. First off, just the market action.
Hmm.
Bitcoin blew past a new record. It pushed over $109,400.
Right. And the source connects that surge, partly at least, to this kind of growing feeling, maybe momentum, around potential regulatory clarity in the U.S.
Yeah, and it mentioned something about surprising bipartisan support for crypto laws.
Exactly. That was part of the narrative the source picked up on. But what's interesting is how that market stuff wasn't just happening on its own. You had major institutional players making pretty big moves this same week. It seems like they were reacting to, or maybe even, helping drive some of that regulatory optimism the source talks about.
Absolutely. The source points to BlackRock, for instance. They apparently shifted, what was it, $430 million?
Yeah, $430 million,
Moved it out of their Bitcoin position and put it into Ethereum.
which of course immediately got people talking about the flippening again.
Always does.
Yeah.
That idea that Ethereum might overtake Bitcoin someday, it sort of suggests institutions were maybe looking broader than just BTC.
And it wasn't just shuffling money around. The source also highlights the sheer amount of new money coming into regulated crypto products.
You mean like ETPs?
Exactly. Exchange-traded products, basically ways for traditional investors to get crypto exposure easily. They saw $3.3 billion in inflows
In just that 1 week.
in just that week. That number alone, I mean, it points to institutional interest really ramping up fast.
Yeah, that kind of money coming in definitely adds some weight to those bolder predictions the source mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Like ARK Invest, apparently they upped their Bitcoin target quite a bit to $2.4 million by 2030.
Wow, that's ambitious. And Michael Saylor was still saying Bitcoin's going to be a global reserve currency.
Right. And the source's point, I think, is that these aren't just like voices in the wilderness anymore.
No, these are established names making these calls right when there's actual movement on regulation and big money flowing in. It shows a certain confidence building, at least in some parts of the market.
And speaking of regulation, that was another huge piece that week, according to the source. The SEC dropping its lawsuit against Binance.
Yeah, that was big. It took away this major kind of cloud hanging over a huge player in the industry.
And you could feel it in the market, right?
Yeah.
The source mentions this wave of optimism rallies, especially in altcoins.
Mm-hmm. The regulatory angle is often seen as, the key to unlock wider adoption. So the source definitely frames this Binance decision as a really positive step, boosting confidence, maybe opening doors for more regulated stuff down the line.
And it wasn't just traditional finance getting involved. You also had some, well, interesting moves like Trump Media
Ah, yes.
announcing they'd put $2.5 billion into a Bitcoin reserve. And they even had a gala for investors in their Trump MP meme coin.
Right. Now, people might view that differently, but the source includes it as an example of crypto kind of showing up in different places. Media, politics, you name it.
It does show how embedded crypto was becoming by then.
Yeah, definitely. And on the infrastructure side, something else the source highlights is Circle, the company behind the USDC stablecoin.
The stablecoin, right? Pegged to the dollar.
That one. They officially filed for their IPO on the New York Stock Exchange.
Okay, that feels pretty significant. A major crypto company going for a traditional public listing.
Exactly. The source sees that as a clear sign the ecosystem is, well, maturing. It's building bridges to conventional finance.
It suggests a level of like operational seriousness that maybe wasn't there a few years before.
Right. Crypto companies growing up, basically, and stepping into those established markets.
Now, with all this good news records, inflows, regulatory relief, big predictions, IPOs, it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it? The source did mention Coinbase had some issues.
True. It notes Coinbase faced legal trouble over an internal data breach.
Okay.
And the source uses this as kind of a reality check. A reminder that even with all this growth in institutional money, those underlying risks, security, operations, they're still there.
Still a challenge for the industry.
Definitely.
So if we step back and look at this whole week, May 27th to June 2nd, 2025, The source really makes a strong case for calling it defining.
It does seem packed.
You've got serious institutional money coming in through regulated channels, a key regulatory overhang removed, major companies aiming for public markets, these huge future price targets being set.
And crypto assets themselves showing strength, hitting new highs, even while, facing some operational bumps like the Coinbase issue.
Yeah, it really does paint that picture. The source describes crypto taking noticeable steps on its path to mainstream adoption.
It was quite the mix. Market forces, regulation, corporate moves, all pushing in a direction the source clearly sees as more mainstream.
It really was a convergence. So for you listening, here's something to think about based on what we pulled from the source. You had all these different things happening in just 7 days. Huge investments, institutional shifts, regulatory news, market highs, bold predictions, but also these reminders of risk. Given that specific mix for that 1 week, what does it suggest is the single most crucial factor to watch next as crypto keeps evolving? Something to mull over.